Kevin Levrone is a name that echoes in any serious conversation about bodybuilding. Known worldwide as the Maryland Muscle Machine, he built a massive fan base and earned deep respect in the sport. Every time he stepped on stage, he left a mark with a physique that looked like it had been carved out of stone. But beyond appearances, what really stands out in his journey is the mix of discipline, sacrifice, and relentless dedication. Today, we're diving into his story to understand why Kevin Levrone became a true legend. Kevin's life started with challenges that would shape not only his personality, but also the way he viewed the world. Born in Baltimore, Maryland, he grew up in a humble family, the son of an African-American mother and an Italian-American father. That cultural mix gave him a wide perspective on life, but it didn't shield him from hardship. From a young age, Kevin learned, through the toughest way possible, what it meant to fight against pain and loss. At just 7 years old, Kevin lost his father to cancer. That alone would have been devastating, but life had another cruel blow in store. As a teenager, he also lost his mother to the same disease. Suddenly, he found himself without either parent, forced to dig deep and find the strength to keep going. These tragedies left a permanent scar on his youth and fueled a constant fear. Would he face the same fate one day? It was in the middle of this dark reality that Kevin discovered weight training. More than just a sport, lifting became his escape from the dark place he lived in. Every rep, every drop of sweat wasn't just about building muscle. It was about battling weakness and silencing the ghosts in his mind. For Kevin, the gym wasn't just a place to train. It was a sanctuary of rebirth, where he could rebuild not only his body, but also his spirit. This hunger for health and survival didn't come out of nowhere. Kevin's first real spark of inspiration came from one of his cousins. The guy wasn't a pro athlete, but his physique turned heads everywhere. For a young man still grieving the loss of both parents, that was like seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. If his cousin could transform his body with discipline, maybe Kevin could change his own fate and escape the shadow of illness. Seeing that powerful, imposing body didn't just leave Kevin impressed, it lit a fire in him. He realized that if he wanted to stay alive and healthy, he had to take full control of his life. That decision marked the start of a journey that wouldn't be easy, but one that would prove to the world just how far human willpower can go. It's fascinating how, in so many cases, pain becomes fuel. Think about it. How many people do you know who've used suffering as a springboard to achieve something great? Kevin is one of those stories. He could have given in to grief and fear, but instead, he chose a different path, turning pain into discipline, loss into strength, and insecurity into motivation. Kevin's professional career kicked off in 1991 when he made the leap into competitive bodybuilding. At 27, he was already standing out for his dense, aesthetic physique, a product of years of hard training and unshakable discipline. Right from his very first season, he proved he wasn't there to play around. His early wins at local shows opened the door to something much bigger: international recognition. The following year, 1992, Kevin shocked the bodybuilding world by winning the Grand Prix Germany, one of the sport's most prestigious shows at the time. But the real shocker came later that same year, when he made his debut at Mr. Olympia, the biggest bodybuilding stage in the world. Against all odds, he snagged an incredible second-place finish right out of the gate. To many, it looked like the rise of a future Mr. Olympia champion, a man destined to claim the sport's ultimate crown. But once again, life threw him a brutal challenge. During training, Kevin attempted a bench press of 600 pounds, about 272 kilograms, an insane weight even for elite athletes. The extreme strain resulted in one of the most severe injuries of his career, a complete tear of both his major and minor pectoral muscles. The damage was so bad that he had to undergo 2 complex surgeries, one of them lasting over 8 hours. Recovery was brutal. Beyond the physical limitations, Kevin had to wrestle with the crushing mental weight of seeing his career threatened right after hitting one of its highest points. Many believed he would never return to the same level again. The pain, post-surgery infections, and long absence from the stage were enough to have ended his story right there. But if there's one thing that has always defined Kevin Levrone, it's his ability to come back stronger than before. The very same year he tore his chest, he shocked the world by stepping back on stage, and not just competing, but winning. He took the 1993 Grand Prix Germany and reclaimed his spot among the bodybuilding giants. That moment proved Kevin wasn't just another talented athlete. He was a man determined to push past every limit. Over time, his trophy case only grew. He shined at shows like the Arnold Classic and racked up multiple Grand Prix wins across Europe and beyond. His consistency, even after countless setbacks, cemented his reputation as one of the most complete and resilient bodybuilders in history. For fans, Kevin wasn't just about muscle. He embodied the very meaning of overcoming adversity. Mr. Olympia is the ultimate dream for any bodybuilder. It's the stage where only the best in the world stand, fighting for the most coveted title in the sport. With his jaw-dropping physique and commanding presence, Kevin seemed to have everything it took to wear that crown. Over his career, he competed in no fewer than 13 Olympias, always showing up with razor-sharp conditioning and an aesthetic look that wowed both fans and judges. Even so, the title always slipped through his fingers. Kevin placed runner-up 4 times, in 1992, 1995, 2000, and 2002. To come that close to victory at different points in his career highlighted just how consistent and dangerous he was as a competitor. But thanks to judging decisions, outside factors, and even injuries, the ultimate glory never came. That's how Kevin earned the nickname, the Uncrowned King of Olympia. Instead of hurting his image, that nickname only boosted his legend. For many fans, he was a true champion who simply never received the official crown. His freak genetics, brute strength, and balanced proportions put him in a category so rare that even his rivals admired him. It's no wonder so many athletes of his era openly admitted Kevin had one of the most complete physiques the sport had ever seen. It's interesting how, in every sport, there's always that figure who defines a generation without necessarily claiming the top title. Kevin is exactly that for bodybuilding, living proof that greatness isn't measured only by trophies, but by the legacy you build along the way. His string of second-place finishes may have carried a so-close feeling, but they also prove that he was always in the mix with the absolute best, year after year. The fact that he never won Olympia also shows just how brutal the level of competition is on that stage. Sometimes, a tiny difference in conditioning, a last-minute strategy call, or even the subjective eye of a judge is enough to change the entire outcome. In Kevin's case, those razor-thin margins kept him from first place. But did that stop people from seeing him as a champion? For countless fans, the answer is simple: absolutely not. On stage, his presence was magnetic. The symmetry of his body, the raw power he radiated with every pose, and the energy he brought to the crowd made him a show all by himself. Fans roared, audiences stood to cheer, and even his competitors respected him. That kind of impact doesn't show up in scorecards. It lives in the memory of everyone who watched him. In truth, the nickname Uncrowned King is a hidden badge of honor. He may not have officially worn the crown, but his career is remembered with the same reverence as the actual champions. One thing that always stood out about Kevin was his training style: intense, calculated, and no nonsense. Unlike many athletes who leaned on high-volume workouts, Kevin believed in a more direct approach. His training usually revolved around low reps, 6 to 8 on average, sometimes even fewer when chasing raw strength. For him, it wasn't about how many reps you cranked out, but the intensity and quality behind each one. Another trademark of his routine was prioritizing compound lifts. While other bodybuilders spent hours on isolation movements, Kevin built his physique around the basics. Bench press, squats, and deadlifts were the backbone of his training. For him, these multi-joint lifts were the true foundation for muscle density and real strength, shaping a physique that was both massive and balanced. And of course, his natural gift for strength gave him a huge edge. Even early in his career, Kevin was moving massive weights, and he knew how to use that as a weapon. But it wasn't just brute force. He combined heavy loads with strict technique, making his sessions brutally effective while minimizing the risk of injury. His philosophy was simple: go heavy, but always go right. And this is where one of the pillars of Kevin Levrone's philosophy comes into play: flawless execution. He believed there was no point in piling on weight if your form broke down. For him, every rep had to stimulate the muscle precisely, no shortcuts allowed. The worst thing anyone can do is sacrifice form just to lift heavier, he used to say. That mindset kept him at the top for so many years, in a sport where injuries are practically part of the job. His training routine also followed a very structured system: push-pull legs. On push days, he trained chest, triceps, and shoulders. Pull days were for back, biceps, traps, and forearms. And leg days? That was all about quads, hamstrings, and calves. This split guaranteed balanced muscle development and no weak points. It also allowed Kevin to hit maximum intensity in every session without wasting energy. This approach earned him the nickname full-blown. The term referred to his insane ability to transform his body quickly during prep. While most athletes needed long periods to get stage ready, Kevin could completely flip the switch in just weeks. Thanks to his genetics, intense training, and iron discipline, it was like his body was always on standby, ready to blow up into size and definition at any moment. As intense as Kevin's training was, his diet was even more extreme. Within bodybuilding circles, he became notorious for following a brutally repetitive, no-excuses meal plan, especially during Olympia prep. For 3 straight months, his menu was basically just fish, rice, and broccoli. No red meat, no sauces, no seasoning. Just the basics, repeated 6 times a day, every single day, without fail. His fish of choice was flounder, which he considered the cleanest protein source possible. Kevin ate around 7 pounds a day, roughly 3 kilograms. Imagine eating that daily, completely plain, no ketchup, no spices, no variety at all. For most people, that would be unbearable after a week. Kevin stuck to it for 90 straight days, showing a level of discipline that bordered on superhuman. That level of commitment came at a price, literally. Just his food bill ran between $400 and $500 a week. On top of that, he spent hours prepping meals, storing them in extra refrigerators he had to buy just for his diet. It was the kind of lifestyle where everything revolved around bodybuilding, no distractions, no compromises. And diet wasn't the only sacrifice. Kevin also stacked in daily cardio sessions, usually 1 to 2 hours, often fasted to speed up fat loss. After that came the heavy lifting, sometimes up to 2 hours just on legs. It was a marathon of physical and mental grind, where the restrictive diet pushed his body to the edge. The result of all this? A physique with razor-thin skin, dry and detailed muscles, almost like a marble sculpture. Kevin believed diet was the true key to achieving this extreme look, the difference maker that separated amateurs from real champions. For him, training was the fun part. The real battlefield, where most people quit, was in the kitchen. There were no shortcuts. Either you embraced the suffering of the diet, or you'd never reach bodybuilding's highest level. This lifestyle demanded not just physical toughness, but above all, mental strength. Imagine months of eating tasteless food, fighting monotony and fatigue, while your body screams for something different. Kevin accepted that as part of the grind. He knew victory wasn't for those chasing comfort. It was for those who embraced suffering as the path forward. In the end, his philosophy was simple but brutal. Diet is the true battlefield. If you can't control what you eat, you don't belong among the greats. That mentality shaped not only his physique and career, but also left a valuable lesson for all of us. If you want extraordinary results, you have to be willing to pay the price of discipline, even when it means daily sacrifice. After years of competing at the highest level, Kevin Levrone decided to step away from the stage in 2003 after the show of Strength Pro Championship. It was a defining moment, leaving a noticeable void in the sport. But unlike many athletes who struggle with retirement, Kevin chose to see it as an opportunity to reinvent himself. He had already proven everything he needed to as a bodybuilder. Now it was time to explore new paths for his talent and energy. Outside of competitions, Kevin surprised fans by exploring passions that had nothing to do with the stage. Music was one of them, something he had always loved, and he even performed professionally, proving that his talent wasn't limited to bodybuilding. He also dipped his toes into acting, appearing in movies like Backlash, 2006, and Redline, 2007. These ventures revealed a creative, artistic side that most people didn't associate with him, but that had always been part of who he was. And Kevin never really walked away from an active lifestyle. Even after retiring from competition, he stayed connected to sports through tennis and golf. Those games required a different kind of conditioning, but they showcased his versatility and his drive to stay healthy and competitive in other arenas. At the end of the day, Kevin's essence was always about taking on challenges, whether it was pushing weight in the gym or testing himself in something new. In 2015, he decided to give back some of what he'd learned. He launched his own supplement line, aimed at athletes and gym enthusiasts looking to boost performance and recovery. A year later, in 2016, he took that mission further by creating an online training platform where he shared exclusive tips, methods, and programs. For Kevin, it was a way to give back to the sport that had given him so much throughout his life. But the biggest shock came that same year. At 51 years old, after being away from competition for 13 years, Kevin announced he was coming back at none other than the Mr. Olympia stage. The news shook the bodybuilding world. How could someone so long removed from the spotlight dare to return to the toughest competition on the planet? Some doubted him, others cheered, but everyone was eager to see how this historic comeback would play out. When he stepped on stage, Kevin proved that the fire still burned inside him. He placed 16th, but that number didn't matter. Just being there, standing next to athletes decades younger and in their prime, was an achievement in itself. His return was celebrated not as a loss, but as a symbol of determination and passion for the sport. It was the kind of move that added yet another layer to his already legendary story. That final chapter sent a powerful message. Age and circumstances don't get to dictate your limits. Kevin Levrone isn't remembered just as an elite bodybuilder. He's remembered as a man who turned his entire life into an example of resilience and discipline. His legacy goes far beyond Olympia stages and shiny trophies. He embodied the idea of suffering with purpose, enduring brutal diets, grueling training, and personal sacrifices in pursuit of perfection. Few ever matched that level of grit, and that's exactly what set him apart. His unshakable discipline is one of the most talked about parts of his career. 3 months eating nothing but fish, day after day without comfort, and a lifestyle that resembled military precision. These details still shock people today. Kevin never went after the easy route. He went after what was necessary. That mindset made him an inspiration not just for athletes, but for anyone chasing a dream, proving that true strength goes far beyond genetics. It comes from the will to never quit. Another cornerstone of his legacy is how he turned pain into fuel. Losing both parents at such a young age could have sent him down a path of destruction. Instead, Kevin chose differently. He used that pain to build not only muscle, but also a champion's mentality. His story shows that even in the darkest adversity, you can find reasons to fight and to win. Kevin also achieved something rare in the sport, the respect and admiration of both fans and fellow competitors. Even without an Olympia title, he was revered by rivals who acknowledged his aesthetic, strength, and consistency. His charisma on stage, paired with his respectful attitude, made him not just a great athlete, but a beloved figure, immortalized in the collective memory of bodybuilding. And if there's one lesson Kevin left us with, it's this: bodybuilding is far more mental than physical. His story proves that titles and trophies matter, but they don't define true greatness. What really lasts is discipline, courage, and the example you leave behind. Kevin Levrone showed the world that pain can become power and obstacles can turn into motivation. That's a mindset all of us can apply to our own lives, whether in the gym or far beyond it. And now I want to hear from you. Which part of Kevin's journey inspired you the most? Was it his insane discipline with diet, the way he overcame the loss of his parents so young, or the courage to step back on the Olympia stage at 51? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I really value your opinion. If this video brought you some value, smash that big like button. It helps us a ton and shows that this kind of content is worth sharing around. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of the new videos we've got coming your way. Thanks for sticking with us all the way to the end. Big hug, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care.